Hello, buddy. All right, welcome to the Mikestand. Today is Friday, June 13th, 2024, or 2025, rather. I hope everybody's having a good day today. Of course, we're going to give people a chance to come in before we get started here. So, of course, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we get some more friendly people here to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, as part of my cartoon watching this afternoon, of course, um, end up seeing the last in the Oswald Rabbit series from Walter Lantz Productions, Feed the Kitty. We're working our way through now March of 1938 in terms of my cartoon watching there. That was a pretty interesting cartoon. It does look like we have three people in here now, so I guess I will at least talk a little bit about what's on tap for tonight and maybe get started a little quicker here. So we got a couple articles we're going to go over from Bounding into Comics. One talking about, and I guess one actually talking about kind of a follow up maybe to I guess another follow up to the Donny Cates story because it says here original Ultimate Spider-Man reboot writer reveals series pitch toward older fans. We grew up and didn't have a Peter Parker for us anymore. And then the other story we're going to cover tonight is also 3 years after infamous Green Lantern issue. Apparently now, I guess the term putting somebody in the fridge is now or fridging somebody is actually now in the Merriam-Webster's dictionary, which was something I guess that was started in the comics there. So plus we'll have the wrestling wrap up. We'll look back to last night's Impact and Ring of Honor shows. Look ahead to tonight's SmackDown, as of course WWE is trying to build towards the next show they're doing, which is 1 week from 1 week from tomorrow. Next Saturday they'll be doing their Night of Champions event in Saudi Arabia. Already confirmed for that show. I guess John Cena will be defending the WWE Undisputed title against CM Punk. So now we're coming up on 4 minutes here. So I think I will go ahead, and then of course we'll wrap things up with this day in each history. So with all that being said, why don't we go ahead and get started then? Let's get to the articles at hand here. I will. Alrighty then. So here we go. All right, so here we go. This first article from Bounding into Comics. And let's get started here. The original Ultimate Spider-Man reboot writer reveals series pitch towards older fans, quote, we grew up and didn't have a Peter Parker for us anymore, unquote. Article by Spencer McCooley, published June 13th, which is today, of course. Now, I believe that who they're talking about here is Donny Cates, because if you guys remember, we did the article with him, and it's kind of criticizing some of the issues we found out in the story. He was originally going to do the Ultimate Spider-Man reboot before being involved in a car accident. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So Though the book was eventually brought to life under the direction of its current writer, Jonathan Hickman, original Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 3 scribe Donny Cates says that the idea of Earth 6160's Peter Parker being uh being a more okay somebody in editing forgot to check that, but a more mature and explicitly married version of his usual self was always an integral part of the series' identity. A former Marvel Comics rising star whose career was brought to a sudden, albeit thankfully temporary stop due to his involvement in a near fatal car accident, Cates was the publisher's first choice to helm the Webslingers Earth 6160 revival, their decision ostensibly influenced by his handling of Eddie Brock and his better half during the King in Black centric title on Venom Volume 4. Quote, I was not supposed to do that book, unquote, the aforementioned Hickman told off panel podcast host David Harper during a May appearance on his show. Quote, even before, in brackets here, Chip Zdarsky got the offer, unbracketed. The Ultimate Invasion crossover thing that I did with, in brackets, artist Brian, unbracketed, Hitch, I was not supposed to do that book, unquote. So that's Hickman speaking there. And again, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we get some more friendly people to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Well, with that being said, of course, let's continue on here. Quote, Donnie was going to do that book, and he had been kind of working on it in the background over the years, unquote. He told his host, quote, and he had some stuff go on, and they asked me to come in and help, then take over. And obviously, I took it in a, different direction, unquote. However, despite Hickman's admitted deviation from Cates' original web-covered blueprints, he did pick up on one of his predecessor's main ideas, namely that the ultimate Peter Parker would be far more mature and relatable to older readers than his Earth 616 counterpart. Quote, my entire pitch for Ultimate Spider-Man, in brackets there, was that people want him to be married, to have kids, unquote, Cates told Pop versus Dave Busing during a recent interview regarding his comic book past, which we went over, what was it, I think yesterday or the day before, sometime in the last couple of days here, we went over that interview that Cates did, and he did mention that during that interview. Let's see. Regarding his comic book past, present, and future. Quote, do it for them. What are we doing here? There's an entire contingent of people screaming for him and Mary Jane, unquote. Which is true, which, and we said, was true. And you even see Peter with a beard there, full on mustache and beard there. Look at that. Let's see. Quote, the thing is that people who read those original Ultimate Spider-Man books are now my age, right? Unquote. He posited Quote, and Spider Man's not really a cipher for us anymore because we've all got jobs and kids and stuff like that. The idea of great responsibility is very different than Peter's life, unquote. Yeah, because having a wife and kids is as much a responsibility as it is a pleasure, right? Quote, so you have to see what's harder, unquote. He continued, quote, to be Spider Man with these ideas of responsibility when you have no one at home waiting for you. Um, it's hard when there's a lot it takes more it takes more of a hero, but he does it even though he has these things at home to me, unquote. Quote, Spider-Man has always been there for me, and I pitched it because I wanted to have a Spider-Man for me, unquote. Kate further recalled of his plans for the ultimate for the Spider-Man of Earth 6160. Um, quote, so I said, quote, um, the Spider-Man, the ultimate Spider-Man for us would look like us, a little gray in the beard, um, has to go to the store and get stuff for the kids. I was like, that's what people would respond to now because we grew up and didn't have a Peter for us anymore. Unquote. Hmm. Apparently, you had all these different incarnations in this particular issue. Yeah. To this end, Kate then detailed how, at its core, his vision for Ultimate Spider-Man, as well as the wider Ultimate line itself, whose return he had been setting up across his Venom run, centered on the universe's heroes and villains facing, quote, the choice of being who they're going to be, rather than these things happening to them, unquote. Quote, I think it's a powerful distinction and it becomes the ultimate choice, unquote, explained Kate. Quote, and it's all obviously anchored by Peter, unquote. Hmm. All right. As we continue on here. So, though Kate was never able to bring his ultimate plans to fruition, with Hickman's aforementioned change in direction bringing a number of his long running plot threads, including the Maker's possession of his universe's symbiote, his returning to the original Earth 1610, in parentheses, rather than the renewed Earth 6160, unparenthesed, and Eddie Brock warning the entire Marvel universe of the villain's plans to an unfortunately sudden end. However, far from feeling any resentment towards his successor, Kate has nothing but respect for Hickman's creative choices. Hmm. Quote, I created the ultimate Spider-Man that Jonathan's doing, unquote, he explained. Quote, I pitched that in the room a couple of months before we were going to start on it. CB, in bracket there, Sobolski, Marvel Comics editor-in-chief, unbracketed, loved it. We built up the entire series. That's why the Maker plot is in Venom, unquote. Quote, I wrote the outline and some of the scripts for, in brackets, an unused version of, unbracketed, Ultimate Invasion, unquote, Cates noted. Quote, and then my car accident happened, unquote. Quote, people have asked about why Jonathan's version doesn't adhere to where mine was, and I think it's important to note that Jonathan probably doesn't feel comfortable taking story points from a guy in the hospital who can't write it, unquote. He ultimately affirmed, quote, and I respect that. I think that Ultimate Spider-Man is a great bleeping book. I do, unquote. And there we go with that one. So that was a pretty good. Hey, Pichozo. Hey, Mike. I'm having an issue after shaving where my hair is growing back so fast as to itch a lot. Any help there? Um, Not really, because it's like all I see. I don't necessarily have that problem. Well, okay, my hair does grow a lot, but I have a very simple solution for that. I basically go to the barber about every maybe 4 to 6 months. Have him take the not the razor, but the electric shaver, and just go zoom, 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 zoom. Just take it all off, and then just let it grow back. When it gets kind of like this or whatever, or even more. I go to the barber, get it all cut off, let it grow out. When I get to the point where either it gets too hot to have it, or there's just too much, I'll usually go to the barber. So like that's all I do. There's not really much more I can. That's just my thing. I just let it grow out or get all cut off. You know, my again, depending upon where you are in the country and all of that, you know, um, how often you just choose to get a haircut. Um, is probably is probably all I can advise you on. Alrighty then. So we're done with that article. So now go ahead and head back to, let's get to the next article we're going to do here. The 19th, it's almost 20 minutes here. And again, if you haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. But with that being said, why don't we go ahead and get started here. All right, so 30 years after infamous Green Lantern issue, comic book slang, quote unquote, to fridge, officially enters Merriam-Webster Dictionary. Article by Spencer McCulley, published earlier today. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. So, in a bit of an interesting crossover between the worlds of comic books and linguistics, the term "to fridge" in smaller quotes, as originally coined by writer Gail Simone, based on the now infamous killing of Kyle Rayner's girlfriend, Alexander DeWitt, in the pages of Green Lantern, has officially been recognized as a genuine piece of American slang by the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. I wonder if this is where the idea of women in refrigerators came in. I've heard that concept out there. I wonder if this is what started all that, I guess. But the case where how they killed DeWitt was by putting her in a refrigerator or something like that. So let's go ahead and see here. Now, one of the most famous moments in comic book history, the scene from which the term originates, played out just 4 issues into Kyle's time as the DCU's resident ringslinger. In the pages of 1994's Green Lantern Volume 3, number 54, as penned by his co-creator Ron Mars and penciled by Steve Carr, Derek Donovan, and Darryl Banks. Seeking to obtain the Green Lantern ring in order to weaponize it for use by a planned superhuman army, the mysterious off-the-books government agency known as Quorum orders one of their agents, Major Force, to track down the Owen weapon's current user and bring it by any means necessary. Following up on a lead regarding one of the hero's associates, Alexander DeWitt, unbeknownst to either Major Force or Quorum, is actually his girlfriend, the psychopathic military dog ambushes the unsuspecting woman at her home and forcefully demands she tell him everything she knows about the Green Lantern. However, after finding that not even a savage beating will get her to betray Kyle's trust, Major Force ultimately decides that if he can't get Alex to talk, he can at least use her to send a message to the Emerald Knight. Oh boy. Let's see. Shortly thereafter, Kyle, his attention having been occupied by the sudden appearance of a time-displaced Los Angeles 2088 over its current-day counterpart, um, returns home to Alex's apartment, his mind set on picking back up on their interrupted day plans. But rather than his girlfriend, Kyle instead finds a note on the table, ostensibly written by Alex herself, beckoning him to check the refrigerator for the quote unquote surprise she had previously promised him as he left to save the day. Oh boy. Yeah, this I guess is what we what I had heard about the old women in refrigerators bit. Yes, because Gail Simone wrote the famous article. Or the famous story, you mean? Unfortunately for the young hero, upon doing so, he is met not with any sort of romantic treat, but instead the sight of Alex's freshly murdered body, which had been stuffed inside the appliance. Oh boy, that is quite gruesome. Flying into a Red Lantern worthy rage after being Major Force steps out uh, afterward. I guess okay, another editorial issue there. Major Force steps out of the shadows to take credit for the killing. Um, Kyle unleashes an absolutely brutal beatdown against a government agent, going so far as to even subject his opponent to a full zap from a will-powered electric chair. Whoa! Whoa! Nasty! His fury brought to an end just short of killing Major Force, thanks to the intervention of local law enforcement. Kyle flees the scene only to immediately go into a spiral regarding Alex's death, which he ultimately resolves, in parentheses, at least for the time being, unparenthesed, by swearing to honor her memory by becoming a better, more dedicated hero. Hmm. Let's see. No, the famous article, that article on a website was how Gail Simone got hired. Oh, all right. Fast forward to 1999 and having found herself unhappy with what she saw tendency for Western comic books to kill off specifically female characters in order to motivate its male protagonist. A then just breaking into the industry, Gail Simone. All right, so this is probably what you were talking about. Chose to investigate her belief that, quote, it's not that healthy to be a female character in comic, unquote. To do so, the current Uncanny X-Men Volume 6 writer proceeded to compile a list of, quote, quote, superheroines who have been either depowered, arped, or cut up and stuck in the refrigerator. Oh yeah, I've heard that kind of particular term, putting them in the fridge, and asked her fans to weigh in on what, quote, you guys think it matters, if anything, unquote. Named in quotes here, women in refrigerators, unquote, specifically after Alex's above death at the hands of Major Force. Said list eventually caught the attention of industry pros, in doing so sparking a larger conversation regarding Simone's thesis and ingraining the term, in smaller quotes, to fridge into the general comic book fan lexicon. Yeah, I do know of another instance where a female hero was arped. You know, actually, there's a couple of them. There, of course, actually, um, Black Canary was arped back in the Longbow Hunters miniseries, the Green Arrow book, and then I think And if I remember correctly, during, I don't know if it was Infinite Crisis or Identity Crisis, one of the two, where I guess I think it was a third or fourth Doctor Light, I guess, Doctor Arthur Light, who ended up harping Jean Loring or somebody. And on June 6th, Kyle's unquestionable worst day ever entered the annals of language history when the aforementioned Merriam Webster chose to officially add the term to the ever-growing collection of defined English words. So basically, the idea is in the Merriam Webster dictionary, they put the term "to fridge" in there as part of an official, like part of the official lexicon of American culture, apparently. So, quote, to fridge a, in parentheses, visually female, unparentheses, character in a movie, television show, comic book, etc., is to kill them off or seriously harm, abuse, violate them in some way, in parentheses, as a writer, for the purposes of motivating or furthering the development of another, in parentheses, usually male, character, unquote, reads the official definition, quote, fridging is considered and widely criticized as a storytelling cliche. Oh, okay. In explaining the term's origin, the U.S.'s oldest dictionary publisher asserts, quote, the use of fridge is attributed to comics television novel writer Gail Simone, who in 1999 published a list of over 100 comic book characters, all women, who were killed, injured, tortured, etc., on a website called, quote unquote, Women in Refrigerators. The website's name comes from the issue of a Green Lantern comic in which the superhero finds that his girlfriend has been murdered by a villain and stuffed into a refrigerator. Responding to the news, Simone herself took to Twitter a few days after its reveal to Beam, in quotes here. So, at Merriam-Webster has announced that fridging, in smaller quotes there, is officially a dictionary word. And they announced it on social media and credited me as the creator of the concept on their website. That is surprising and cool. Thank you, Merriam. So she takes pride in the fact that she basically created a word or a phrase term that talks about killing women in such a horrific way as to motivate a male hero. She took pride in that. Okay. Sounds like the lady's got a screw loose or two in there, doesn't it? And for those curious, the scene's aforementioned author, Ron Martz, did respond to its later reputation. Speaking specifically to the events of Green Lantern Volume 3, number 54, as part of a larger reply given to Simone about her list, The Kyle Rayner co-creator explained, quote, I can tell you Alex was a character destined to die from the moment she was first introduced in Green Lantern Volume 3, number 48. Now we got some pretty gnarly people, don't we? Quote, I created her with the intention of having her be murdered at the hands of Major Force, unquote. He said, quote, I took a lot of care in building her as a character because I wanted her to be liked and her death to mean something to the readers. I wanted readers to be horrified at the crime and to empathize with Kyle's loss. Her death was meant to bring brutal realization to Kyle that being GL wasn't fun and games. It was also meant to sever his links with his old life, paving the way for his move to New York. And ultimately, I wanted her death to be memorable and illustrate just how truly heinous Major Force was. Thus, the fridge, unquote. Yeah, Mars came up with the concept, but the lingo for it was credited to Gail Simone. Sounds like you got a couple of interesting people there, say the least. Quote, from the reactions, I think I succeeded fairly well at those goals, unquote, Mars added. Quote, it's 5 years later and people are still talking about it. More than anyone as a writer, you want the audience to react emotionally to your work, to care. I wrote a villain committing a truly despicable deed. That doesn't mean I endorse or admire that behavior. Well, finally got around to saying that. I doubt Thomas Harris thinks of Hannibal Lecter as a positive role model either. And it's probably worth mentioning that Major Force was punished for the act, unquote. All right, so there we go with that one. There we go with that article. But that was a pretty gnarly article in of itself, you know. You know, yeah. Some of these comic book writers. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Alrighty then. So, guess it's a good time to now move on to the wrestling wrap up, as well as I said, look back to, of course, last night's TNA Impact and Ring of Honor shows, as well as look ahead. Now, I wasn't able to preview the Ring of Honor shows because they didn't have it up as of yet on Cage Match, the card, so had to wait for that. But they did have their show last night, so we'll take a look at that. And then we'll look ahead to tonight's SmackDown, what to look forward to on SmackDown. With all that being said, why don't we go ahead and get into it then? All right, so first off, we are going to take we're going to look first at the Ring of Honor show. Ring of Honor and Honor Club number 120 here. Coming from the El Paso County Coliseum in El Paso, Texas, with Ian Riccaboni and Caprice Coleman on commentary. The opening match saw a Lucha Libre tag match in which you saw Atlantis and one half of the New Japan Strong tag team champions, Templario, defeating Magnus and Volador Jr., a battle of 4 CMLL guys. In a singles match, Preston Vance defeated Evil Uno in a singles match, but this also saw the return of John Silver, as of course Preston Vance and the Frat House looked to beat down Evil Uno and Alex Reynolds. Alex Reynolds, who was out with Evil Uno in his corner, while the rest of the Frat House, like Cole Carter, Griff Garrison, and Jack Jameson, were out with Preston Vance. Saw the return of John Silver, saving his Dark Order teammates. In a proving ground match for a chance at the Ring of Honor Women's World title. Now the proving ground matches, as we've explained, much like the eliminator matches in AEW, if the challenger wins the title, then they'll get a title shot at some future date. Now in this case, Red Velvet fended off the attempt by Harleen Lopez to earn a title shot at the Ring of Honor Women's World Television title. And also saw after the match, later on in the evening, saw Red Velvet comment on how next week, along with many other Ring of Honor and AEW stars, they'll be doing some events down in Mexico, down in Arena, Mexico. We already talked a little bit about, of course, AEW's Grand Slam last night. Ring of Honor and New Japan will also be participating in events down there as well. So we'll be waiting to see on all that. Then we saw in an 8-man tag match, Shane Taylor Promotions of Ring of Honor Pure Champion Lee Moriarty teamed with Carly Bravo, Sean Dean, and Shane Taylor with Trish Adora in their corner, defeating the 4 men of Joe DeMano, Riley Reinhart, Von Vertigo, and Martian Webb. Cannot believe that a guy was named Martian. And in the main event, saw in another proving ground match, this one for the Ring of Honor World title, Bandito fended off the challenge of Mansoor of the M&M collection, looking to earn a possible title shot against Ring of Honor World Champion Bandito. So of course Mansoor had his M&M collection tag partner Mason Madden, as well as Johnny TV and Taya Valkyrie in his corner hey Apex, thanks for dropping in. Don't know if you had a chance to catch the last article I did on the comic side of it tonight. I actually got an education tonight, learned a little bit more about the whole women refrigerators bit. I hadn't heard too much about it. I knew it had something to do, I guess, with women getting locked up in fridges, but I got quite a bit of an education tonight. Learned about, I guess, the mindset of Ron Mars and Gail Simone. So, some interesting stuff there. But anyways, as we continue on with the wrestling wrap-up here, and now I will go to looking back to last night's Impact. Last night's Impact coming from the Mullet Arena in Tempe, Arizona, with Tom Hannafan and Matthew Rainwalt on commentary. In their first tag match in 2 years, former WWE, in their first match in TNA in 2 years, former TNA Knockouts and WWE Women's Champions, The Inspiration, Cassie Lee and Jessie McKay, defeated Brittany Brooks and Missa Kate in just under 5 minutes. Leon Slater defeated one half of the Great Hands, Jason Hotch, who had, of course, John Schuyler in his corner. I'm sorry. John Silver was the AEW guy. I'm sorry. John Silver was the Dark Order guy, not John Skyler. So my mistake there. In an 8-4-1 match to determine the number one contender to the Knockout World title. Now, this is a TNA concept in which you start out in an eight-person tag match. You have two teams of randomly selected 4 athletes each. 8-man tag, basically 4-on-4. The winners of that match then face off in a fatal 4-way, and the winner of that match is the winner of the 8-4-1 match. Now, in this case, the prize for winning the 8-4-1 match is becoming the number one contender to the TNA Knockout World title, and therefore basically getting the next shot at it. So Killer Kelly defeated Danny Luna, Indy Hartwell, Jody Threat, Rosemary, Tasha Steelz, Tessa Blanchard, and Sarah Brookside in the match. The 8-man tag match saw Killer Kelly, Jody Threat, Indy Hartwell, and Tasha Steelz eliminate Danny Luna, Rosemary, Tessa Blanchard, and Zara Brookside. And then Killer Kelly, of course, outlasted the Jody Threat, Indy Hartwell, and Tasha Steelz to come out the winner of the match. And the main event saw the Hardy Boys, Jeff and Matt Hardy, defeat the First Class duo of AJ Francis and Casey Navarro via DQ. So that's all that happened on last night's wrestling. So tonight, now we're gonna look ahead to tonight's SmackDown, as WWE, of course, is continuing its build towards next Saturday's Night of Champions event in Saudi Arabia. All right, actually, that was the wrong one there. Tonight's SmackDown comes from the Rupp Arena in Lexington, Kentucky on USA Network. It doesn't look like any matches have been announced for that show yet. So sorry about that. But we will, of course, let you guys know what happened on Monday when we come back. Of course, Apex will be joining me on Sunday to look back at comics went on sale in May of 1940 as we're finishing up. We'll be finishing up that over the next couple weeks here. This Sunday we'll be looking at Startling Comics #1 from Standard, also known as Pines, Better Books, Nador. So with that now, that's all we have for the wrestling wrap-up. So now what we're going to do, of course, is we're going to go ahead and move on to this day in each history. Today being Friday, June 13th, 2025. Get ready. Take a look back at this date in each history. History! So first off, I'm going to head back to the year 2000. As on this date in the year 2000, being released direct-to-video, I believe, from Premier Entertainment Productions. Direct-to-video, I believe, from Premier Entertainment Productions. Aladdin and the Adventure of All Time would be released on this date in the year 2000. Excuse me a moment, folks. I'm going to need to step away from the I need to step away from my computer for a moment. Got to go check something real quick. But what I will do is I'll put some music on. And I will be right back. Okay. All right, sorry about that. I thought somebody was walking outside my window, so I had to go check. Anyways, getting back to this. So, 25 years ago today, of course, from Premiere Entertainment. What was it again? From Premiere Entertainment Productions. Released direct-to-video in the U.S. and Spain, or not Spain, but Philippines. So Aladdin and his new front page visit English kings and Egyptian queens, come face to face with a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and walk the gangplank with Blackbeard in a quest to retrieve the stolen magic lamp. Now, of course, a couple other interesting little notes here about this movie from 2000. One that I just saw here was that this was said to be the final acting roles of Ed Gilbert and Dana Hill. Now, Dana Hill, I looked into this, had actually passed away 4 years prior to this. So I guess she must have been recording some lines for this at the time. And Ed Gilbert, of course, well-known voice actor, provided the voice of like Superion and Sean Berger in Transformers, General Hawk in G.I. Joe, Baloo in Tailspin and Disney's Tailspin. So, and then among some of the other pretty well-known voice actors and actresses to partake in, to be involved in this include, of course, Kathy Cavadini and Elizabeth Daly from Rugrats were involved in this. Jim Cummings, longtime voice actor, of course, most famous for doing Winnie the Pooh. Danny Mann, who is involved with Transformers as Lightspeed, among other characters. So 25 years ago today, 25 years ago today, Aladdin and the Adventure of All Time was released direct-to-video in the U.S. and the Philippines. So now getting ready to move on to the next piece of niche history as we move ahead to the year 2005. As on this date in the year 2005, which of course was 20 years ago today, on this date 20 years ago today, the night after the ECW One Night Stand event happening in Hammerstein Ballroom in New York, the WWE held its Monday Night Raw event at the Boone County Arena in Binghamton, New York. They had their draft that year, draft lottery. Or let's see, the main event saw Kane defeat Sylvain Grenier. Among some of the other notable matches, Chris Jericho and John Cena defeated Christian and Tyson Tomko, and the night opened up with a WWE Intercontinental title match in which Muhammad Hassan got the win on Shelton Benjamin by DQ, which of course, but with it being a DQ win, Shelton Benjamin was able to retain the title. And this was said to be Muhammad Hassan and Khosrow Davari's last event of Raw. They were drafted to SmackDown on June 23rd. Well, there you go with that. So that happened 20 years ago today. Then now moving ahead to the year 2007, 18 years ago today. On this date, 18 years ago today, in 2007, on this date in the year 2007, the 235th issue of Archie Digest from Archie Comic went on sale on this date back in the year 2007. It sold for $249 and was 96 pages. So the 235th issue of Archie Digest went on sale on this date in the year 2007. And finally, moving ahead to the year 2015, I believe. Let me just double check. I should probably double check that to make sure. Yeah. Yes, moving ahead to the year 2015, 10 years ago today. On this date, 10 years ago today. Sunrise's Love Live, the School Idol movie, premiered in Japanese theaters on this date back in the year 2015. So 10 years ago today, Sunrises, along with Bandai Visual, Bushy Road, Lantis, all co-produced this. Love Live, the School Idol movie, premiered in Japanese theaters on this date back in 2015, 10 years ago. All right, so with that being said, I hope everybody enjoyed the show tonight. We'll be back here, of course, this Sunday, as I'll be joined by Apex from Apex Comics. We'll be looking at comics that went on sale in May of 1940 from Standard Comics. I explained all that earlier. So with that, and then we'll be back here, of course, on Monday with more Niche News. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here on Sunday. Bye.